When I was watching the Avengers Doomsday trailer for the first time, I see the action is escalating. Universes appear to be on the verge of collapse. Every shot carries that cold metallic blue and green color palette Marvel has leaned into for the film. And then, for just a few seconds, the trailer completely changes its language. The color becomes warmer. The atmosphere feels strangely peaceful. Loki appears standing beside a window, dressed not as the god of stories we last saw at the end of Loki Season 2, but wearing the exact TVA-style suit and tie that instantly reminds fans of his earliest days inside the TVA. It lasts only a moment, but that single frame feels disconnected from everything surrounding it. And sometimes, those are the moments Marvel hides the biggest secrets inside. Because immediately before that shot, the trailer shows something even stranger. A mysterious hand quietly examining a small card. One side carries the image of Yggdrasil, the cosmic tree now connected directly to Loki's sacrifice. The other side appears to feature Loki himself alongside the TVA insignia. Marvel never wastes a close-up like this. If they wanted the audience to ignore the card, they never would have lingered on it. So the real question isn't simply what that card is. The real question is, who is holding it? The obvious answer would be that it's just another TVA agent. But if you slow the footage down and begin connecting it with older MCU moments, a much more fascinating possibility starts to emerge. Notice how Marvel carefully avoids revealing the person's face. They don't show a costume. They don't show any identifying features. Only a hand holding something that appears incredibly important. That's a classic Marvel strategy whenever they're protecting a major reveal. We've seen them hide characters through silhouettes, cropped frames, and misleading edits countless times before. But what if this isn't hiding a brand new character? What if it's hiding someone we've known for almost 2 decades? Someone whose story technically ended in Avengers Endgame, yet whose final fate has never truly been explored on screen? What if the person holding that card is actually Steve Rogers? At first, that idea might sound impossible. After all, Steve chose a peaceful life with Peggy Carter. His story ended with a dance instead of another battle. But the deeper you think about Marvel's Multiverse Saga, the more interesting that ending becomes. Because we were never shown what happened after that dance. We only assumed the story was over. That missing chapter has fueled countless discussions ever since Endgame was released. Marvel deliberately left Steve's final timeline unexplained. We know he lived a full life with Peggy, but where exactly did that life unfold? Was it inside the sacred timeline? Was it another branched reality? Or was it somewhere else entirely? Over the past several months, rumors circulating online have suggested that Steve and Peggy may have spent those years on Earth 828, a universe closely tied to the Fantastic Four. It's important to emphasize that this has never been officially confirmed by Marvel. However, if that rumor were true, it would suddenly solve several narrative problems at once. Steve wouldn't simply disappear from the MCU. Instead, he would become a silent guardian living peacefully in another universe, completely removed from Earth's major conflicts, until something so catastrophic threatened reality itself that even retirement could no longer protect him. And if that universe truly is where Steve has spent nearly a decade, then he would eventually witness something unlike anything he fought during the Infinity Saga. Not Hydra, not Thanos, something even larger, an incursion, or perhaps the arrival of Dr. Doom himself. Now go back to that mysterious card. On its own, it already looks unusual. But once you consider Loki's transformation at the end of Season 2, it becomes much more significant. Loki isn't merely another MCU hero anymore. He's literally holding the branches of the multiverse together. He's connected to Yggdrasil itself, sustaining every timeline simultaneously. That means any object carrying both Yggdrasil imagery and TVA symbolism immediately feels less like an identification badge and more like a multiversal artifact, almost like a direct line to the being now sitting beyond time. What if this card isn't meant to unlock a door, but to reach Loki himself? Think about it. If Loki understood that one particular timeline, or one specific individual might someday become essential to saving the multiverse, it wouldn't be unreasonable for him to leave behind a way to contact him during an absolute emergency, not for everyday use, not for minor threats, only for the moment when reality itself begins collapsing. In other words, a multiversal emergency key disguised as something deceptively simple. That possibility becomes even more compelling when you compare the environments shown in the trailer. Most of Avengers Doomsday appears cold, mechanical, and almost oppressive. The lighting is dominated by metallic blues and deep greens, giving the film an atmosphere of inevitable collapse. Then, Loki's scene arrives, and suddenly the visual language changes. The warmth returns. The lighting becomes softer. The palette feels remarkably similar to another moment MCU fans know by heart. The quiet ending of Avengers Endgame, where Steve finally danced with Peggy in the home he had waited his entire life to experience. Is it identical? No, we can't say that. But the resemblance is striking enough to raise questions. Marvel has always used color grading as emotional storytelling. Different timelines, different emotional states, even different realities often carry their own distinct visual identity. So when one sequence suddenly abandons the dominant look of the trailer, it may be because we're no longer watching the same world. We're stepping into someone else's reality. And if that reality belongs to Steve Rogers, then the trailer may already be hinting at one of Avengers Doomsday's biggest emotional reunions without revealing it outright. Picture how that scene could unfold inside the movie. Nearly 10 years have passed since Steve chose peace over war. He has built the life Tony always hoped he would have. Peggy is beside him. The battles are behind him. Then, little by little, strange events begin appearing across his universe. The skies behave unnaturally. Reality starts breaking in impossible ways. Entire regions experience phenomena that shouldn't exist. Maybe Steve doesn't even know the word incursion yet, but he knows one thing with absolute certainty. This isn't a problem that Captain America can solve with a shield. If the rumors about Earth 828 hold any truth, Dr. Doom's growing influence could be the catalyst that tears apart the fragile balance between universes. And that's the exact moment Steve remembers something Loki entrusted to him years earlier. Not a weapon, not a portal device, just a single card. One that seemed insignificant until the day everything began to fall apart. Steve picks it up, activates it, and somewhere beyond time, the guardian of the multiverse finally hears the call. Then the trailer cuts exactly where we see Loki standing by that window, as though he has arrived in response. If that's really what's happening, then Marvel may have hidden something extraordinary in plain sight. That mysterious hand wouldn't just belong to an unnamed character, it would belong to the man whose story defined the Infinity Saga. Loki's appearance wouldn't simply be another cameo. It would be the moment two of the MCU's oldest rivals reunite under completely different circumstances. The house wouldn't just be a random location, it would become the symbolic bridge between the ending of Endgame and the beginning of Doomsday. And suddenly, one quiet shot in a trailer transforms into a scene carrying nearly 20 years of Marvel history. Whether this theory ultimately proves true or not, the clues are intriguing enough that it's impossible to ignore them. Sometimes Marvel's biggest reveals aren't hidden in explosive action sequences, they're hidden in the calm moments. The ones most viewers watch only once before moving on. And if this theory is even partially correct, then Avengers Doomsday may already have shown us the moment Steve Rogers returns, not with a battle cry, but with a single card that reconnects him to the only person capable of protecting the multiverse. But there's one final piece that makes this theory even more fascinating, and surprisingly, it has nothing to do with the card, the house, or even Loki himself. It has to do with Steve Rogers. Throughout the Infinity Saga, Steve was always the one character who refused to stop fighting whenever innocent lives were at risk, even after losing Bucky. Even after the fall of C-Shield, even after the Avengers broke apart during Civil War. And even after Thanos erased half of all life, Steve's defining characteristic was never his super soldier strength. It was his inability to stand by while the world suffered. That's exactly why his ending in Endgame felt so meaningful. For the first time in his life, he finally chose himself. He chose peace. He chose Peggy. But imagine the emotional weight if Marvel intentionally gave him those 10 years of happiness only to confront him with a crisis even bigger than Thanos. Steve wouldn't be returning because he misses being Captain America. He would return because the universe gives him no other choice. That single decision would preserve everything that made his ending beautiful while proving that some heroes never truly retire. They simply wait until the moment the world needs them again. It would also explain why Loki, of all people, might trust Steve with something as important as a multiversal emergency key. If we go back to the very beginning of the MCU, Loki and Steve represented completely opposite ideals. One believed power came through control and fear. The other believed leadership came through sacrifice. They spent years as enemies. But by the end of Loki Season 2, Loki has experienced loss, redemption, loneliness, and responsibility on a scale that no other MCU character has endured. He's no longer the trickster who wanted a throne. He's become the silent protector of existence itself. And if you're responsible for every timeline in the multiverse, who would you trust to use an emergency connection only when absolutely necessary? Not someone driven by revenge, not someone chasing power. Steve Rogers may actually be the safest choice in the entire multiverse. He's the one person who would never activate that card unless reality itself was collapsing. That kind of trust would also complete one of Marvel's longest-running character arcs, transforming two former enemies into unlikely allies connected by the responsibility of protecting every universe. Then there's Dr. Doom, the wild card that makes all of this feel dramatically possible. Unlike Thanos, whose goal was terrifying but straightforward, Doom is expected to operate on an entirely different level. Across Marvel Comics, Doom isn't simply a conqueror. He's a strategist who understands cosmic forces, alternate realities, and the weaknesses of entire universes. If the MCU follows even part of that blueprint, Doom won't just attack cities or planets, he'll attack reality itself. An incursion isn't something the Avengers can punch their way through. It's the collision of entire universes where saving one world often means sacrificing another. If Steve witnesses the first signs of that catastrophe on Earth 8-28, every instinct he's ever had would tell him to act immediately. And if Loki truly left behind a way to reach him across time and space, then that card becomes far more than a clever Easter egg. It becomes the first domino in the chain that assembles the multiverse's final line of defense against Dr. Doom. What if the greatest threat wasn't a villain trying to conquer reality, but someone trying to fix it? And what if the only person who understood the truth was the one no one trusted? Because this time, the war isn't about power. It's about permission to exist. Somewhere beyond time, beyond timelines, beyond every version of history that ever happened or could happen, stands a being who no longer lives inside cause and effect. Not a king, not a hero, not even a god in the traditional sense. The man who once fought for a throne now sits outside destiny itself. Loki. From that place, he doesn't watch one universe. He watches all of them breathing together like a fragile organism. Every decision made by every hero echoes through reality, and Loki hears the cracks long before anyone else does. The universes aren't dying from war. They're dying from contradiction. Timelines are colliding not because of villains, but because too many saviors keep saving them in different ways. Reality was never designed to survive infinite heroism. For centuries, heroes believed they were preventing apocalypse. But from outside time, the pattern looks different. Every victory creates another branch. Every sacrifice generates another possibility. Every time a world is saved, another world becomes incompatible with it. Loki sees universes grinding against each other like tectonic plates, and the pressure keeps building. Entire realities vanish not in explosions, but in quiet correction, as if existence itself rejects certain outcomes. And then he notices something terrifying. The universes that collapse always have one similarity. They contain too many protectors interfering with the same destiny. The multiverse isn't threatened by evil. It's threatened by abundance. Meanwhile, inside a collapsing timeline, the Avengers believe they are facing their most dangerous enemy yet. A mind that doesn't want to rule worlds, but reorganize them. A man who has studied reality not as a battlefield but as a system, Dr. Doom. Unlike conquerors before him, Doom isn't searching for power. He's searching for stability. He has calculated the lifespan of existence itself, and every equation ends the same way. Infinite heroes create infinite contradictions, and contradictions collapse reality. Doom isn't attacking Earth. He's trying to reduce variables. The Avengers see mass disappearances across universes. Civilizations erased overnight. Entire histories rewritten. To them, it looks like genocide on a cosmic scale. To Doom, it's surgery. When they confront him, he doesn't boast, doesn't threaten. He explains. Reality cannot function with infinite branching decision makers holding equal narrative weight. Some timelines must be sealed permanently, and some individuals, anchor beings, cause disproportionate instability. Remove them and universes stop colliding. The Avengers hear madness. Doom hears mathematics. Neither side realizes someone else has already seen the outcome. From beyond time, Loki watches the confrontation and does nothing. Not because he doesn't care, but because he understands the future of every possible choice they're about to make. If the Avengers defeat Doom, the multiverse fractures beyond repair within centuries. If Doom succeeds completely, existence becomes stable, but sterile, locked into a single deterministic structure where freedom becomes illusion. Both sides think they're fighting for life. Both outcomes quietly kill it in different ways. Loki realizes the problem isn't hero versus villain. It's the presence of too many necessary beings in one shared reality. He studies timelines deeper, searching for the origin of collapse. Not wars, not invasions, not even Infinity Stones caused it. The real fracture began when individuals started defying fixed narrative roles. Heroes surviving deaths they were meant to die. Villains reforming. Destinies rewritten repeatedly. Every act of hope altered universal balance. Ironically, heroism became entropy. The multiverse was stable when stories ended. It destabilizes when stories refuse to finish. Loki finally understands. Existence requires endings to survive beginnings. But no Avenger accepts an ending anymore. Doom eventually senses someone observing from outside chronology. He cannot see Loki directly, but he detects adjustments. Small corrections preventing total annihilation. For the first time, Doom hesitates. Because whoever is interfering understands the equations better than he does. When they finally communicate across temporal boundaries, the conversation is calm, almost respectful. Doom claims he must eliminate unstable constants, certain heroes whose survival creates exponential branches. Loki doesn't disagree. That is what terrifies him. Doom is not wrong, only incomplete. Loki reveals the missing variable. Pruning randomly causes rebellion across existence, and rebellion generates even more instability. Doom wants to remove dangerous individuals. Loki believes the universe needs them removed willingly, or the multiverse will reject the correction. Reality doesn't accept forced balance. It demands narrative closure. Every being must reach an end that feels inevitable. Doom calculates probability. Loki understands story. And existence, at its deepest level, obeys story more than physics. Back on Earth, the Avengers notice anomalies that don't match Doom's attacks. Some catastrophes undo themselves. Some destroyed cities reappear in altered states. Certain heroes narrowly avoid deaths that should have happened, but only temporarily. It feels less like rescue and more like postponement. They think someone is helping them fight Doom. In truth, someone is delaying them long enough to prepare them. Because the solution Loki is approaching isn't victory, it's acceptance. He begins subtly guiding events so specific heroes confront versions of their own unresolved endings. Not battles they can win, conclusions they can understand. A warrior faces a life where he never became a hero and sees the peace he denied himself. A genius sees a timeline where his survival destroys worlds centuries later. A leader witnesses a universe that thrives only after his final sacrifice actually stays permanent. One by one, they start realizing survival has consequences larger than death. And somewhere deep inside, they begin fearing the answer. Doom grows impatient. The collisions are accelerating. Entire clusters of universes are merging violently. He prepares the final stage, eliminating anchor beings across realities simultaneously. A clean cut, efficient, permanent. But just before he initiates it, Loki appears before him not as a trickster, not as a king, but as a witness carrying every timeline's memory. And he tells Doom something unexpected. You're not the destroyer, you're the alarm. Because the universe doesn't need a conqueror to choose who dies. It needs someone the heroes trust, to choose who must stop existing. Loki now understands why he survived everything. Not to rule, not to redeem, but to decide. The Avengers will never accept Doom's judgment. But they might listen to someone who once fought beside them, betrayed them, died for them, and changed. The only being who stands outside destiny must become the one who ends destinies. Not out of hatred, out of mercy. And that is the moment the true conflict begins. Not Avengers versus Doom, but hope versus necessity. The moment Loki steps into the flow of time again, the universe reacts as if something ancient has been disturbed. Not explosions, not storms, silence. The kind of silence that only exists when reality itself pauses to acknowledge a decision being made. For the first time since he began observing from beyond chronology, he allows himself to be perceived by those inside it. Across different worlds, different battlefields, different eras, a familiar figure appears, sometimes standing beside broken towers, sometimes at the edge of dying stars. To each hero he meets, he doesn't explain the multiverse or the mathematics of collapse. He shows them something far more dangerous, their completed story. Not their death, but their ending. And the difference between the two terrifies them more than any enemy ever has. The Avengers gather after realizing the appearances aren't illusions. Every encounter leaves emotional scars instead of physical ones. A soldier who always believed sacrifice defined him now sees a future where endless survival turns him into a relic, unable to let the world move on. A scientist witnesses centuries of dependency built around his continued existence, preventing humanity from evolving beyond his shadow. A protector sees that saving everyone forever traps the universe in a perpetual present where nothing new can begin. None of these futures involve conquest or corruption, only stagnation. For heroes who built their identity on preventing endings, the idea that their continued survival harms existence feels like betrayal by reality itself. They confront Loki together, demanding clarity, demanding proof that this isn't manipulation. And for once, he does not answer with riddles. He tells them the multiverse is not collapsing because of villains or wars, but because stories refuse to conclude. Every hero who escapes their destined final chapter becomes a permanent variable, and infinite permanent variables create paradox. The universe was built on cycles: rise, peak, legacy. But modern heroism has erased the last step. No one passes the mantle anymore. They hold it forever. And forever, as Loki has learned from eternity itself, is a concept existence cannot support. They reject him immediately, not angrily but desperately, because accepting what he says means accepting that their purpose has an expiration. They argue there must be another way, a method to stabilize reality without erasing lives. Loki listens patiently, almost sadly, before explaining the truth he discovered while watching all possible outcomes. Every alternative solution delays collapse, but multiplies branches. The more they fight to remain, the faster universes grind against each other. Even now, entire realities are overlapping, merging histories that cannot logically coexist. Somewhere, a planet remembers being saved by two different heroes who never lived in the same timeline. The contradiction spreads like infection. While they argue, Dr. Doom continues his preparations. He senses the hesitation spreading among them and interprets it as weakness. To him, emotional attachment is precisely why they cannot be trusted with cosmic responsibility. He activates devices across dimensions designed to identify anchor beings, individuals whose survival exponentially increases timeline divergence. Names begin appearing across his systems. Many are expected, some are not. And then he notices something unexpected. The list keeps changing. Every time Loki speaks to one of them, probability shifts. Not toward survival, toward acceptance. Doom realizes Loki isn't opposing him. He's making his task unnecessary. The Avengers refuse to stand down. They plan to stop Doom before any irreversible action occurs, convinced that defeating him will buy time to find another answer. Loki doesn't stop them. Instead, he joins them. Not as a leader, not as an enemy, as a witness ensuring events unfold in the only order that prevents panic across existence. During their assault on Doom's stronghold, they notice something unsettling. His defenses are weaker than predicted. Routes open too easily. Traps deactivate moments before triggering. It feels less like infiltration and more like guided passage. None of them realize Loki has already seen this confrontation thousands of times and removed only the deaths that would prevent understanding. When they finally reach Doom, the battle doesn't begin immediately. He looks at them not with anger, but with confirmation. He can see it in their hesitation. The seed Loki planted has grown. He tells them his calculations predicted resistance, grief, and denial. What he didn't predict was voluntary surrender. He asks if they now understand why variables must be reduced. No one answers, because deep inside some of them do. They attack anyway, not to defeat him, but to reject the choice being forced upon them. The fight becomes less about victory and more about refusing inevitability. Mid-battle, collapsing timelines start bleeding into the room. Alternate versions of the same heroes flicker in and out. Older, younger, victorious, fallen. Some watch silently, already aware of what this moment means. One version salutes before fading permanently. Another smiles in relief. The Avengers finally see what Loki saw. Endings are not tragedies here. They are stabilizers. Every variant that accepts completion strengthens reality around them. Every variant that resists causes fractures to spread further. For the first time, the battle stops not because they are defeated, but because they understand what winning would cost. Loki steps forward and halts both sides. He tells Doom his method would save existence but destroy meaning. A universe where beings are removed by calculation alone becomes orderly but empty. Growth requires choice, even when the choice is painful. Doom argues that emotional closure is inefficient. Loki responds that existence itself disagrees. The timelines only stabilize when individuals willingly reach their final chapter. Not killed, not erased, concluded. The difference is philosophical, but reality recognizes it as absolute. Now the decision shifts to the heroes. No machine will choose. No villain will impose it. They must decide whether they are guardians of life or guardians of continuity. Some step back immediately, unable to accept. Others remain frozen, staring at their alternate selves, dissolving peacefully into singular histories. One by one, they begin understanding that heroism was never about endless protection. It was about ensuring the world no longer needs them, and they have prevented that moment for too long. Doom watches silently as the process begins without his intervention. For the first time, he appears uncertain. His entire life was dedicated to imposing order because he believed humanity incapable of choosing it. Yet here they stand considering the unthinkable voluntarily. He lowers his systems, not defeated, proven unnecessary. Loki was right. The universe didn't need an executioner of bodies. It needed an executioner of stories. But acceptance is not immediate peace. As the first hero prepares to let their timeline end naturally, instability surges violently. The multiverse resists sudden balance as fiercely as imbalance. Loki realizes the final step cannot be gradual. Someone must anchor the conclusion, a single will carrying every ending simultaneously so reality transitions without tearing itself apart. And there is only one being who exists outside the very concept of personal timeline. He looks at them not as a trickster, not as a god, but as the only one capable of bearing infinite goodbyes without disappearing himself. In that moment, they finally understand what his role was never about guiding them to sacrifice, but preventing them from having to carry the weight alone. The universe requires an executioner, yes, but one who executes possibility, not people, and the cost of that role has not yet been revealed. For a long time, no one speaks. Not because they don't have words, but because every possible word suddenly feels smaller than the moment standing in front of them. The fractures across the sky slow, yet they don't close. They hover, waiting for a decision that cannot be undone once made. The heroes understand now that the universe isn't demanding death. It's demanding completion. And completion requires a single point of certainty strong enough to hold every timeline steady while the rest finally settle into one coherent history. Their eyes turn toward the only being not tied to a personal destiny, Loki. For the first time, none of them see the liar, the manipulator, or the rival. They see the one person who cannot be replaced by a legacy because he was never meant to leave one behind. He explains quietly that reality behaves like a story because consciousness gives it meaning. When too many stories refuse to end, existence loops endlessly, unable to move forward. Someone must become the final page, not to erase the characters, but to allow the book to close so another can begin. If each hero chooses their own ending separately, the transition shatters creation. But if one will holds every conclusion at once, the shift becomes a single moment instead of infinite collapse. That will cannot belong to a mortal timeline. It must belong to someone already outside consequence. Which means once he does this, he will not continue watching. He will not exist as observer, ruler, or god. He will become the boundary itself. The Avengers refuse immediately, but their refusal lacks force. Because this time they aren't rejecting his logic. They're rejecting the cost. They offer alternatives, share the burden, divide the endings, delay the convergence. Loki gently dismisses each idea. Shared burden recreates multiple anchors, restarting the fracture. Delay multiplies contradictions again. And dividing endings forces someone to decide whose story matters more. The only fair executioner is one who gains nothing from the decision and leaves nothing behind after making it. For once, the trickster has no angle, no survival plan hidden beneath words. Only acceptance. Across the chamber, Dr. Doom watches with an expression none of them have seen before. Respect. All his calculations predicted conflict, resistance, bargaining. None predicted voluntary finality from the one being who fought hardest against insignificance his entire life. Doom admits that had he carried out his solution, existence would have continued, but humanity would never know peace with it. They would always fear arbitrary erasure. What Loki offers instead is meaning. an ending chosen rather than imposed. Doom deactivates the last of his systems, not in surrender, but acknowledgement that his role was to push reality to the edge where someone else could pull it back. The instability surges violently as the moment approaches. Alternate worlds flicker, some already healed, others breaking apart faster as if rushing toward resolution. Loki begins gathering the branching timelines, not with power, but with intention. Every hero feels memories shifting inside them. Versions of themselves they never lived blend into understanding they somehow recognize. Not confusion, closure. They realize he isn't killing variants. He is aligning them so only one complete life remains for each being. The rest resolve into possibility fulfilled rather than potential abandoned. The pain they feared never arrives. Instead comes relief, heavy and quiet. One hero steps forward, asking the question none of them wanted to voice. What happens to him after? Loki smiles in a way none of them remember seeing before, free from ambition or sarcasm. He explains that a boundary cannot stand inside the world it separates. He will not watch the future he creates. He will be the reason it can exist. Every timeline will pass through a single fixed moment, his choice, and continue without him beyond it. Not death, not life, function. The universe won't remember him as ruler or savior because memory itself requires time, and he will stand outside it permanently. They understand then why he showed them their endings earlier. Not to convince them to disappear, but to prepare them to live afterwards without guilt. If he carried every conclusion alone while they resisted, the universe would stabilize, but they would spend eternity wondering if survival was theft. Now they know continuation is permission granted, not victory stolen. For heroes who define themselves by sacrifice, accepting survival becomes the hardest act of courage they have ever faced. The convergence begins. Light doesn't explode outward. It folds inward, like countless pages turning at once toward a final chapter. The collapsing realities narrow into a single coherent flow. Histories rewrite smoothly instead of tearing. People who once existed in overlapping contradictions now remember only one life each, complete and unquestioned. The battle scars fade from worlds that never needed to break. Time stops resisting itself. And at the center stands Loki, holding infinite endings simultaneously, expression calm as the weight of existence passes through him. For a brief instant, he feels every story reach peace. Wars that never needed to repeat end properly. Sacrifices remain meaningful instead of temporary. Legacies finally pass forward. He understands something he never did while chasing thrones. Ruling was always about preventing change, but purpose is allowing it. The universe doesn't need guardians forever. It needs them until it can stand alone. And in that understanding, the last trace of the trickster disappears, replaced by something simpler, acceptance, without witness. The light fades. The chamber remains intact, silent. The heroes stand where they were, but the fractures in the sky are gone. No branching echoes. No overlapping versions. Just one steady reality moving forward for the first time in ages. They look to where Loki stood, but there is no body, no energy, no sign he was ever physically present in that moment. Only a stillness that feels protected. Not by someone watching over them, but by a choice permanently made. Doom confirms it quietly. The equations no longer produce collapse at any future point he can calculate. For the first time, probability curves into open future instead of inevitable recursion. Existence is finite in structure, yet infinite in potential again. Not perfectly safe, not perfectly ordered. Alive. He admits that his greatest fear was a universe governed by emotion. Yet emotion is what allowed it to survive rational correction. Logic identified the problem. Meaning solved it. Life resumes across worlds. People remember heroes, but their memories feel complete, not ongoing obligations waiting for the next crisis. The Avengers remain, yet something fundamental changes. They are no longer permanent shields against eternity. They are temporary protectors inside a timeline finally allowed to move beyond them someday. And strangely, that knowledge doesn't weaken them. It frees them. Because protecting a future you won't control makes every moment matter more. Somewhere beyond time, there is no throne, no watcher, no God observing outcomes. There is only a boundary holding reality together, an unseen final decision ensuring stories can end so new ones can start. Not a savior, not a destroyer, an executioner of endlessness. And for the first time, the universe moves forward without looking back. If you felt that ending, you already know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe. Because some stories deserve to continue being told.